The Burundian government has served notice that it could withdraw its troops from the African Union force fighting militants in Somalia. The country says the main reason for withdrawal is due to their troops not being paid. According to Emmanuel Ntahomvukiye, the Defence Minister, the European Union has not paid the salaries of the Burundian troops for 10 months. The decision of the EU to cut off its funding for the troops is tied to the ongoing political crisis in the country. Burundi is the second largest contributor to the African Union mission in Somalia. They have over 5,000 troops in the country.
If we withdraw the military now, there will be many problems because the Shabab terrorists will attack Somalia again, because the military will be weakened or non-existent.
Let's get some more details, insights and analysis on this developing story from CCTV's Abdulaziz Bilo, who's standing by for us in Mogadishu, and Elena Casas, who joins us live from the EU headquarters in Brussels. Thank you both for joining us. Abdul, let's begin with you. What impact will the withdrawal of Burundian troops from the EU mission there in Somalia have, one, on Somalia's stability, and two, on the fight against Al-Shabaab?
Well, Penina, as you've put it out clearly there, Burundi is contributing almost 5,000 troops to the 22,000 strong African Union mission here in Somalia. So it comes slightly less, it has lesser forces than Uganda that has 6,000 troops. So if you look at that manpower, definitely, Penina, it's very, very important and a very, very big number of forces here in Somalia who are battling the Al-Shabaab. Now, in this case, Burundi has announced its intention to withdraw from the African Union mission in Somalia. Now, Burundi itself is in charge of a place called Sector 5. Sector 5 now is the Middle Shabelle region. This is the region, it's a very vast and very expansive region that is adjacent to the capital. It's in charge of the rich agricultural rural towns and villages in Middle Shabelle. Recently, we also visited a town called Al Baraf. This is in the Middle Shabelle region, where Burundian troops liberated that village from the militant group Al-Shabaab for the first time in 7 years. The Al-Shabaab controlled that small village for almost 9 years. So definitely Burundi, for Somali authorities here, is an important partner in the fight against the Al-Shabaab. Now in this case, the 5,000 troops are very vital because the region that the Burundian troops are is adjacent to the capital. The capital is very, very crucial for the African Union mission in Somalia. Its headquarters, it's here, all the UN bases are here, and the federal government is based here. So definitely authorities will not be expecting Burundi to withdraw troops anytime soon, despite the announcement by the Burundian officials, even though it's being blamed on the funding cut by one of its key donors, the European Union, Penina.
Right. Elena, Burundi cites, like Abdulaziz mentioned, the withholding of funds by the EU as among the reasons for exiting Somalia. What's the current status of the EU support for the EU mission in Somalia, and more specifically the Burundian contingent?
Well, the EU suspended funding to Burundi in April over the political chaos in that country. The EU said at the time that Burundi was not complying with minimum human rights standards and that the government wasn't sufficiently engaged in the African Union-based political process to try and end the violence in that country. The EU still believes that this is the case. Recently, the EU's Foreign Minister Federica Mogherini said that she had seen a glimpse of hope in Burundi, but the EU still believes that the government there is not sufficiently complying with human rights norms, and as a result, Burundian individuals who are under EU sanctions will remain under them, and EU development funding to Burundi remains suspended, and that is a very significant amount of money, not just the funding to Burundi's troops in Somalia, but perhaps half of Burundi's entire budget funding was coming from the EU. They'd promised 432 million euros between now and 2020, which won't be forthcoming now unless the Burundian government changes tack.
Well, Abdul, are there any indications on the timelines that have been given by Burundi for their withdrawal? And is the Somali National Army able to fill in that gap that will be left by the Burundian contingent?
Well, Benina, there is no clear time frame from the Burundian side on their possible withdrawal here from Somalia. What we know is that Uganda announced its intention to end its mission here in Somalia by October 2017. And also African Union officials have said that they plan to completely end the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM, here by 2018. So that is that on that end. There's no clear timetable from AMISOM, the African Union, or the Somali government regarding the withdrawal of more than 22,000 African Union troops drawn from 5 different countries. On the other hand, Penina, the Somali National Army has proved in some ways effective once they are aided by the African Union mission in Somalia, AMISOM soldiers, or whether they are backed by the US commandos. And we have seen a series of raids on key Al-Shabaab bases. On these 2 occasions, they have proved very effective. But on the other hand, if we look at if we base their events on the recent events that took place in southern and central Somalia following the withdrawal of Ethiopian troops, we've seen that the Somali government forces cannot withhold these regions and these towns that Ethiopian forces are vacating. In this case, Mokokori and Halgan and also Tieglo. We have seen the Al-Shabaab retake all these towns, and we've also seen the Al-Shabaab carry out deadly attacks here in the capital and also here neighboring in Afgoye, that is just 30 kilometers. So most definitely the plight has been highlighted, the challenges facing the army has been highlighted following the recent withdrawal of Ethiopian forces. But authorities here are saying that they're trying their best to rebuild the country's national army. They've begun a process called the integration of the Somali National Army. They're trying to reintegrate all the different security sectors into a powerful force that can be able to tackle better the Al-Shabaab. But for now, Penina, authorities here are saying that they cannot go it alone.
Right. Elena, a joint review between the EU and the African Union hailed a reduction of violence in Burundi. So could this be a basis point of a re-evaluation of the EU's position on Burundi?
Well, Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said that for every step forward in Burundi, there's one step back. So yes, there has been a reduction in violence, but at the same time, the Burundian government continues to do things that the European Union thinks are extremely concerning, particularly its recent announcement that it wishes to withdraw from the International Criminal Court, which has of course been followed since by South Africa and the Gambia. Now, for the EU, this is an extremely bad sign coming from the Burundian government that it doesn't want to cooperate with international justice or with human rights norms, and that makes it very unlikely that the EU is going to re-establish its funding to Burundi unless something changes.
All right, Elena Casas joining us live from Brussels, Abdulaziz Bilo live in Mogadishu. Thank you both.